welcome to SeerNova Podcast, episode 113. We have Brad Linder from Firestorm Comics. Wow, can I say words?
Yep, that's right, man. That's me. And you pronounced my name right. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I was hoping that I was going to do that.
Yeah, it's just look at it this way. It's classic German. It's like Linder Bagel, except it's an I instead of an E. So yeah, but I get called Linder a lot. Like no, that's not. But you know, yeah. Thank you guys for having me on, man. I appreciate getting to hang out with you. Hopefully we won't run everybody off. So, but
well, real quick, tell everybody what you're drawing over here, because obviously
I am just messing around with this character right now, making him pretty generic. You guys had mentioned your character with the Greystone type skin, which is one of the rare characters that I was shocked I hadn't seen it. But what I was going to do was I'm going to flesh this guy out a little bit, and then I'll start adding in some stuff. I think I'm just for time's sake, so we don't get distracted. I think I'm just going to go the Batman route and kick him out that way. But because, like I said, I don't want to mess up your character because I don't know reference of it or anything like that right now. Go that route so we have something to do and I can keep moving and not give everybody just this scribble on my board. But yeah, I hang out here and doodle at the board all day and make comics. And Firestorm is my brand, and it is it's a small press company. And what I did was I took original creations. The long and short of it is I took original creations mixed with Golden Age creations that I wanted to adapt into my own style and tell unique versions of them, and created my own universe. So I had a villain in the very first intro, which Origin is on Amazon. You can get Firestorm Origins. It's a small short comic on there for free on Amazon. Amazon, if you look up my name, and you'll see it. And I had basically a supervillain blow up the universe and start it by blowing up the Earth with nuclear weapons, and the Spirit of Fate from the Golden Age comics stepping in and saying, "Oh, we can't do that," and fixing it, and it reset. So they don't know it happened, and we changed a bunch of characters and made our own Firestorm universe. So I'm also on a new kick, which is what I was talking with Greg about before. And I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see that yet or not, Dylan, but I'm doing a short run on, I say a short run. It's, yeah, it's quite a few issues for Lucky Comics and for John Helmer. And we're going to have his Beetle Girl have quite a big story arc coming out. I've taken over penciling on that one. Matter of fact, penciling, inking, and lettering. And I do gray tones for it as well on that book because it's black and white. And I just really wanted to go experiment with it and have fun with that one because they've got a pretty good history of doing one-shots. So they like to do 8-page one-shots. And each individual story is really, really closed as far as what ends up happening in each issue. So you don't have to worry about the consistency and continuity. It's all the same cast and characters, but you're looking at all of the different changes in between book to book. So what I like to do is I like to go in and make sequential arcs out of it. And for the first time, they've got continuity as an allowance because they've given me free reign with a couple of titles over there. And for some reason, John saw fit to put me in charge of it. I don't know exactly why, but I think I wore him down and conned him into it. but we'll see. Because he saw some of my work with the original, the Golden Age stuff. And I thought it was really cool that he had such a cool concept with Beetle Girl, and which is supposed to be the granddaughter of the Golden Age Blue Beetle character, and not to be not to be misunderstood or mistaken for the character that DC has, which they based that off of the same thing, like they did Shazam, Captain Marvel,
Yeah.
did their own version of it. And the funny thing is, uh, they they have a ton of characters like that. I mean, everybody back then made their own versions of characters because they saw something that was popular and they jumped on it. And as a side note, I am a self-proclaimed comics historian. I do a lot of research and I study this stuff like crazy, especially with working in Golden Age comics and things like that. Man, it's just nuts the stuff that people do out there. Some of the stories that go on are just crazy. But anyway, um, I picked up this gig with Lucky Comics because of the fact that I wanted to do something unique and something fun and different to make my way back. Because in 2020, in October of 2020, I had a stroke.
Wow.
Yeah, it was due to some stress problems that I was having, and it caused my blood sugar to jolt up, and I ended up having a. They call it a full stroke. I don't. I don't think it's that bad. I've seen some people have some really, really gnarly stuff happen to them, and my right side went numb. I had a bad headache on the 17th. My family and I were going out to lunch. We were in the car, and I know I'm giving him like no neck here. So anybody that wants to criticize that, yeah, I did that on purpose. The high Breyfogle type shoulder, the traps. So the classic huge traps where he has no neck. Just going on that angle. Side note, but
Say you prevent your neck from breaking.
right. It's the Keaton style. He has no ability to turn his head. But as far as that goes, we were riding along, going on after lunch on a weekend, and it was the 17th. I leaned over in the car seat and had a really sharp pain in my head. I thought I had a migraine. Next thing I know, on the 20th, I'm in the hospital in ICU, and it turns out that my entire right side went numb, and I had a stroke. Um, it was completely out of the blue as far as that stress goes. But man, I tell you what, it was crazy because I was in the thick of it, working 7 days a week, drawing comics every day, and knocking stuff out. I got to issue, I think it was 30 of Catman Evolution, which is the Golden Age Cat, my version of the Golden Age Catman, and it's his grandson. And uh, I was working on that one, and I had a roughly 10 titles set up to go to publication, and we had to freeze it because I had to take off time and recoup. And this is right off the end of my finishing my 377-day sketch card run of doing lives every day across YouTube and Facebook.
Mm.
That was crazy, man. I was live every day, and then everybody's like, "Where is he? What are you doing? Where are you at? Why aren't you drawing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry, but I have to drop all my projects, and I have to uh, take at least a couple months off and recoup because even now I still get that feeling, when you like hit your funny bone, or
The
when
tingle.
yeah, or when something goes to sleep, like your foot will fall asleep and it
Yeah.
wakes up in the needles and you're cringing, going, just kill me now, because it's
Hmm.
almost uncontrollable and bearable. Well, I feel like that all the time, and it's from the top of my head all the way down to my foot, and it's consistent all the time. It's just it's something I'm used to now, unfortunately, but I am recouping. You know, I have movement back. I have fewer spasms and things like that. Uh, but that, I tell you, those are fun. When your body revolts on you, it's not fun, man. It's a unique experience. But now I'm back a year and a half later. Jump to today, and I'm doing comics again. And
I'm also noticing you're drawing with your left hand.
yeah, luckily I'm left-handed. Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say. I wasn't sure if that was post incident, or if that was because you've always been left-handed.
No, I've always been a southpaw, and that was probably the only thing that saved my career. Because for the first, when I woke up the first morning in ICU after I got admitted, the doctor came in and he said, "You got to understand." He goes, "We don't know what's going to happen yet. We're going to have to wait and see." And I didn't see him for the 3 days that I was in there. And he comes back up on the 3 days and tells me, "Well, you're not going to be able to walk again. You're not going to be able to stand on your own. You're not going to be able to sit up. You're not going to be able to do this, do that." And I basically told him some swear words, which I won't repeat on your audience because I know you got post this on Facebook and such. And got the utility walker next to me and took off walking across the 10 feet across the room from my bed to the door and told him, "Now what?" So I
That's
don't
awesome.
play. Yeah, I've never been one. I don't quit, and I don't.
Gator don't play that.
No. I don't quit, and I don't say can't. I just don't allow my kids to say can't, don't, won't. I just don't do it, man. I say it in this case because I'm saying I don't do that, but any other time, and I just drew that in cricket. But any other time, I don't even balance that out, man. I just say, nope, not going to happen, right?
That's like the saying, the yet. Like I can't yet. Just like getting that resolved.
I mean, just tell an ICU specialist and a neurologist that bite me, to put it politely again. That's the end of it, man. I was like, I have a business to run. I have a family to take care of. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put them out in that regard. And everybody told me that, you need to make plans for this, that, and the other, and it's just going to be bad. We're not going to have, it's not going to be the same anymore, and we're not going to have anything going on, and all of this mess. And I was just like, okay, cool. You're on the list. You're on the list. You're on the list. I'm not talking to you anymore. Later. And that was the extent of it. Now, like I said, I'm doing like the Breyfogle type of armor here, where the chest connects and it's actual chest plates, and then it's shoulders, because his was more of a padded up around the shoulders and chest, and then he had the rib cage right here, where you could see the ribs and the abs, and then it was like the ribs and the abs, it's the fabric down here. But he always used to draw this like torso pad for some reason. And go look at some of the other books. It's weird. It's weird the way he used to do that. But he would sign off like this right here and say, this is like padding, and then it's Batman. So I don't know.
Who's the illustrator you just mentioned?
Now I can't remember his first name. But Breyfogle.
Breyfogle, okay, yeah.
So, but he always used to draw his Batman. He was one of the first artists to draw the black suit Batman too.
As opposed to the blue gray one?
Right. They used to color a lot of his stuff in purple because he was quote unquote the black bat, the black.
The actual Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah. Don't need any racial profiling on the costume. That would be a bummer, especially these days. Don't do that. But
Norm is Norm's the first name.
Yeah, Norm Breyfogle. Yeah.
I was trying to look it up because I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. But and this is a cartoony, sketchy style too, though, as you can see, it's not really comic bound. But anyway, beyond the stroke thing, I did, and I'm going to grab a page here so I can show you. We can move on. But yeah, beyond the stroke thing, they told me I wouldn't walk. That I wouldn't walk on my own, move on my own, this, that, and the other. And I'm not going to run any marathons or anything anytime soon. But the thing is, I was never really a runner anyway, so whatever. But except for pizza, I will run to pizza in a heartbeat. But
yeah, place it at the end of a 26-mile run.
yeah. Make it worth it, Yeah. But it's just one of those things. They told me I wasn't going to do anything, and I was just jumping back in, man. It's crazy. But I wanted to do this to show everybody kind of where I'm at now. And you have seen, I know you guys have gotten a glimpse of the previous Lucky Comics stuff, and they do a great job over there. They got really good comics, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
just checking them out.
they do look indie, but they have it's got, I don't know. It's hard to describe because I don't want to insult any of the guys. It's got that indie look. I'm not going to say amateur look, but it's got an indie look to it. But then I have permission to show these, so John's not going to kill me. But here are a couple of pages from what I'm bringing to Beetle Girl. This is going to be black and white. It's just simple black and white line work. I do the penciling, inking, the gray toning here for the scale because this is, like I said, I wanted to do black and white, but I wanted to make it grayscale.
How are you doing the gray toning? Is that in Photoshop after, or are you doing like
No.
manual?
I use various types of gray toning markers that I have. I love these things, and yeah,
they're really smooth. That's why I was curious. I'm like, that's really good.
It takes to do true gray toning, or as we call it, toning and scaling, that kind of thing. To get that quality look, you have to be very careful with it, and I have worked very hard to get my colors to smooth out in comparison to what most people get. I mean, you can see on this one where I went around the edges, you guys can see the streaks there, because I haven't blended that yet. And we wanted to, and then I showed John this page, and he goes, leave it on the border. He goes, it looks like a fabric on the background.
I was about to say, it does actually look pretty cool. I kind of like that.
Yeah, he said it's a wet. He's got it. It says it's kind of got a felt look to it. He said leave it alone, and he said it makes the page pop. He said the interiors are really smooth, so don't worry about that. And I was like, well, you're the boss, go for it. But this is another page that I did. Actually, the following page to this one. That is hand stipple, by the way. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, this is an 11x17. This is the original page right here because I work from home. So and this being mine, I just used 11x17 regular 50-pound, just offset 11x17 paper, rather than using cardstock on this one because he decided to use this as my sample from my samples.
That's awesome.
Now you got to understand, I draw 3 pages a day, and I draw them at this level.
Yeah.
And because of the way I do them, I do Kirby style. Okay. So when I did this sample, I go in, I read the script, I break the script down, and it's by Lou. This particular script, by the way, is by Lou Mujin, which worked for Marvel for a couple of backup stories and things like that. And he's a really cool guy. But very golden age style in writing and dialogue, but which made it a little more contemporary for my stuff to push into there. But what ended up happening was this was the sample that I showed John to get the job. And I did 3 pages for this, and I did this page, and there's we counted he goes, how many spots are in the stippling? He said, can you actually tell me? There's 5,241 right in here. I literally took the time to count them as I was doing them, just so that I could do them and tell him exactly that as a joke, just to pull it on him when he asked me, because I knew he was going to tease me about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'll lift this up where you guys can get a little bit better look at it.
Oh, we can see. We got it full screen right now, so it's looking. It looks incredible.
I mean like I said, this is a third of an 11x17 page. I had other artist friends that I flagged this around, and they were telling me, "Dude, you're nuts." But then I followed up and did the same thing right down here.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it just
it's
gives
cool.
it a little more organic look, and I love texture work, like the broken glass behind here. This particular character is going through an emotional breakdown, as you can see, crying and all that. I did this effect here to show the mental break.
Yeah.
Just it's it's all of an old school texturing, storytelling type of thing to move the reader through the process.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like a lot of new independent comic creators miss out on is that background is so powerful. Like all those dots that you have, like
Right.
with the electricity, it almost makes it feel like static noise, like in the background. Like that's like
Right.
that stuff's so important. And like the shattered glass, like that's that stuff you'd see in like even animes where like they have that moment where like somebody snaps and like the background just fractures and it's like it's a very powerful tool that I feel like a lot of independent creators miss out on now. They I feel like a lot of them kind of skimp out on the background sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's they do, and I totally agree, and I think it's a lost art because of the simple fact of a commercial, uh, like Marvel and Disney. Disney, I say them in unison, of course, they're the same company, but
Yeah,
Marvel and Disney look at it from a different perspective as far as that goes because they're looking at being an IP manufacturer and they got to kick out books every month.
speed. Yeah,
So
speed.
it's all expediency. Exactly. And they've switched over to animation factories down in, they use a lot of South Korean companies. They use a lot of Brazilian companies and South American companies. And all these alternatives, because of the fact that American artists tend to go for more detail and are slower, because we tend to be like, hey, we want to be the next Jim Lee kind of thing. Even in,
Yeah.
even in 2023, coming up, in 2022 right now, we're in mid 2022, and everybody for 2023 is talking about, more detail, and it's like I never gave up the detail.
Yeah,
But
that's something like I see that in coincidentally. My brother's gotten this like anime kick recently, and he's been watching some of the old anime, and like you can tell there's this shift from like the '80s to like the early 2000s,
right,
where it went from like I was trying to figure out. I'm like, why does the old stuff feel better, even though it's actually lower quality? Like some of the stuff isn't as crisp, and I'm like, it's the backgrounds. That's what it was. Like there's an
right,
entire city in the background of the scene, and it's completely unnecessary. It's not even referenced in the scene, but
right.
it builds an environment and a feeling that you have that, yeah, it just doesn't exist anymore.
Well, you know, I I get asked to do a lot of. I don't do conventions. I just don't. Nothing against them. I just don't do them because I don't have time. It's either you draw at the table or you draw on the convention table. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Are you going to make
Mhm.
comics or are you going to make sketches for people? I would rather have them read my books and be more impressed by the quality of work that I put out in the books in comparison to what's out there next to it on the shelf, instead of having to deal with all the drama of going to a con and then paying the overcharged prices for a sketch. You know what I mean? I just don't think
Yeah.
things deserve that. But I do a lot of online course training and things like that, and video trainings and this, that, and the other, and then private teaching sometimes too, with artists. And here's the three things that I teach, and I don't want to turn the whole podcast into that, but basically the old rule of thumb is you control the eyes, you control the hands, you can express anything, right? Then after that,
Yeah.
then after that is character posture. So it's gesture drawing for the position. Then it's the emotion on the face. But then modern comics, 99% of them, if you crack them open, I can go grab anything post 2000, and I guarantee you, I only collect a couple of books, so I don't have many in here. Um, Sorry to the guys in the market, I just don't buy them unless they're retrograded trades. I go backwards now I buy older stuff instead of the newer stuff anymore, except for a couple of exceptions. But beyond that, background is a character too, and I always tell my student stat, hands down, it's always about making the background as big a character as anything else. The environment is key. Without knowing where the character is, it's not going to bother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is really important. Like even like little things, like if a character's feeling down and they just left a building and they're in an alley next to a dumpster, like those that little detail of like putting them in a scenario where they feel like they're in the gutter and they're literally standing in the gutter, like that
Right,
important.
right, right.
So, our flagship title, the Seer Chronicles, the artist that we had for the remastered version of the first one,
Right.
He actually added a lot of detail in like certain areas that I didn't even think he was going to do it. First was just the destruction, which was really cool, and there's actually like it just looks awesome. And then the background, like you were saying.
Oh yeah, can you see can you see our screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, see, there's
character.
Yeah, that's intense, man.
Yeah, that's our character without like the human skin over it. And then I didn't even think about like having anything like this in this panel, but he added a potted.
Oh yeah.
He just added this like potted plant to like give the panel character besides just showing John Benson down here.
I just realized I think this is like squished to show on what's it called, StreamYard, because I'm like, why is it like skewed? And I'm like, oh yeah, it is, it's a little squished. Yeah, like that potted plant on the windowsill. I remember when we first received that, I was like, that was so perfect, because it's like a kind of alive potted plant, like the plant that is not really like doing really good. It's just kind of there, and it's like got a shadow on it while you see somebody like stalking our main character. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that little detail is so awesome.
Well, that's a very good call too for the artist to make, because it's a very organic prop. It's a very organic prop to make it to give you that whole, it's building. And see that's part of the problem too. I hate it when I open a comic, and I do check comics all the time. Don't get me wrong, I do look for comics because I'm always the ultimate optimist, and I'm inside my head. I'm inside the comic store just thinking to myself, please let these not suck. So that's one of the things that I'm always on the lookout for, is a good comic to actually buy, because I want to throw my money into the market. I love this industry, but I hate it when I open a comic book and I see, oh, well, it's a cityscape. Okay, cool. You see this funny stone wall, and it's very flat, very abstract, couple of stippled marks to show it's stone, to instigate it's stone, and then it moves forward and nothing comes from it. That drives me nuts, because there's no paper, there's no citizens walking down, civilians walking down the street, there's no fire hydrants, there's no drains, there's no leaves.
That's exactly it. We literally care so much about that when we first started our comic book journey, we decided to make a 3D version of our city so that we would know where in the city people are moving. So like, for example, if somebody gets shot and they have to get to the hospital, oh no, they're 10 blocks away, they might not make it. Right. We can actually decide and change the story based on that. Like we literally we mapped out our city, and now it's like making sure like we do have stuff like that, like it's like, hey, why is there no fire what's it called, fire extinguisher in the kitchen? We kind of need that. It's a safety protocol, right? It's like those little details. And now it's gotten to the point where it's a little too slow to put it into our complete 3D world. So now what I've been doing is we have our main streets mapped out for the most part in the outsides of the building. But if we ever go on the inside of a building, I found this free, almost free. It's like $5 a year, so really expensive 3D modeling program where you can develop floor plans, and then you can actually 3D render them, so you can look at them in like different angles. So I would literally map out like one of them's a tattoo parlor that one of our characters goes through. And
do you guys ever use Google Sketch?
I did a while ago. I think I got bought by somebody. Like, it's not Google Sketch anymore, but I ended up we found this one called I think it's like Floor Plan Creator. Floorplancreator.net. It's $5 a year. And they've been updating it, which is awesome, because I actually created stuff manually in there using the shapes. Like, I actually figured out how to create shelving units and things like that, so that I could then copy and paste them for a warehouse scene that we had. And then, like, I think 2 months later, I went back to go build something, and I'm like, what the hell's that? And I saw that they created one that I could just, I could have just used that, but it didn't exist before. So they're like slowly adding stuff to it, which is cool. But I went into all the little details. I was like, oh, I want the boxes that are in a warehouse. Like, they don't have them in here, so I got to build the slanted support beams that's on the edges of those types of boxes. So like,
Right.
yeah, I definitely went hardcore into that, but it's super helpful for planning out a scene. Like one of them, we were trying to figure out where our main character is going to be. How are they going to sneak in? Like they can't just walk past the guards. Like there's going to be a bunch of guards. Oh, I got an idea. There's this sidewalk near the building, and there's parking spots there. We can just have them filled with trucks because they're in the middle of something. So now he can sneak by the trucks. So there's a place that he can sneak. And obviously, they're still going to have a guard at the door, but that's the person he can sneak up on, right? And now it's only one person instead of all the people in the parking lot he has to deal with. And then once he gets inside, where is he going to go? Oh, well, we already have shelves here. Obviously, there'd be a ladder to get to the top of these, so he's going to sneak up the ladder. And like just little details like that. I think we even went so far as to create the piping for the sprinkler system, and that's actually what he ended up using to get down. Like it was we went way too. I created like 2 sets of bathrooms. And I was like, how many people would work here? How many bathrooms do they need?
Oh, that's crazy.
And we don't even go in the bathrooms in that comic at all.
Yeah. Well, but you know, it's all about impressionism. You know, it's like people when they want to do, they want to stay G-rated, right, for all ages and all that good stuff. But then when you get into higher end comics, you know, higher up the tier of content maturity, you get up there to where adult comics come out and everybody thinks you need to sell, you know, for a lack of a better term, TNA, you know, and it's just, come on, really? You don't have to go into the full act. Why not just do impressionism and show a silhouette, you know, show them the romantic interlude, show the kissing, starting it, maybe, you know, maybe the dude taking his shirt off kind of thing, and then end it right there, go into a silhouette, and then the after shot. You know
well, not only that, like by doing stuff like that, you can, like something that Greg and I have been trying to work on and get better at is when we're telling our stories, we're trying to get it so that we can say the most amount of things with the least amount of panels.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I always condense because, you know, that's something I always tell everybody anyway, and it eats me alive to see it because when you can tell a green writer, and you guys know you're creating your comic, so you know. You can always tell a green writer when they come in, and it's like one panel, and it's got this guy saying this, and this girl saying this, and this guy doing this, and the environment's like this, and then
Greg's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, that's how we started. You know, honestly, like it was just like looking at it and going, "Hey, I think that's too much text for one panel. Maybe we just allude to this. Yeah, maybe we just hint at this and move on."
Yeah. Everybody makes the mistake of transition from. Well, you know, it's not just dialogue that's the problem. It's adding in too many movements.
Yeah. This is. I love that you mentioned these because these were all the big things. So originally, Greg wrote out like a 1,000-page novel essentially that we're turning into a comic series. But his first attempt at it, he did it through storyboarding, which is for film. And in film, you can have 3 instances, like 3 movements in a panel.
Right.
But like you can't do that in comics. So like I remember looking at it, and I was like, Greg, what are they supposed to draw on this one panel? You have him simultaneously standing up, sitting down, and then falling down. Like how are we supposed to show all 3 of those in a single panel while they're having a conversation?
Right.
So like, yeah, we had to figure out like, okay, this one scene does need to be broken into 3. And then there's other ones where we're like describing something and it's like, actually we don't need to. That kind of makes the story more interesting if it's just alluded to and then we move on. And so like, there's one scene in our 3rd comic, right, Greg? The alleyway, the run.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a scene in our 3rd issue of our flagship comic, and that one, there's 2 people about to get murked, and we were going to show it because we do show some other, more gruesome stuff in the comics. But this one scene, I'm like, you know what? Like, it's going to make us add an extra page, and honestly, it's kind of cool to just end where like, you know what happens. So. We basically have that kind of the silhouette scene where you're like, uh-oh, and then we move on. And so, I really like I really like when you can do that type of stuff. That's why like people were impressed with like Sin City. You know, like they use color very simply, right? Just black and white and red.
Color because it's called a trigger color. That technique is actually European, and it's called a trigger color. We call it spot color here in the U.S., but overseas, Europeans are huge with that. The French use it a lot. They use black. Black and white line art, and then they'll use a rust-colored, sand-colored brown in a lot of their stuff over there, and they use a lot of washed reds and pinks over there as well. That's a lot of French comics actually use that.
So like kind of like it's basically black and white with rustic coloring. That's interesting.
So it looks like an old Wanted poster, or like an old silver, like an old silver age films.
Yeah, what are they? Is it
silver acetate?
Yeah.
You want it to look like the old silver acetate film. You know what I mean? So that's where that comes from. It's a European technique that was brought over here in the 70s, and some indie guys used it. Matter of fact, Crumb used some in his comic books. Instead of doing them black and white, his first color editions were that French style, and he used a lot of red and a lot of black and white line work, and he used a lot of blue, a lot of purple, and a lot of sand and a lot of red in some of his first run comics. So that's pretty intense stuff, man. That's a great technique to use.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. And honestly, you can use that in a standard colored comic as well for like certain mood scenes. Like you can definitely still take parts of that. Like one of the panel or one of the pages in a comic of ours is like we call it the nightmare scene, and it's literally like he's having a nightmare, like that's prophetic. Like I pulled it. That's hilarious. Yeah, he's got it ready. So yeah, he just pulled it up, and this is from Ink. This is like one of our fan favorite comics, and it's very dark and purple, and like even though there's coloring in it, it's very minimal variation. It's mostly blues and purples and like the soft reds. Or that peachy red, and so it's a very cool thing, and like we were talking last week with Chow, right? No, it was 2 weeks ago.
That was
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was like
weeks ago. That was a good interview.
Yeah, and we were talking about the color and how it makes your eyes kind of dance across the page in a way, and then you notice the silhouettes that were like, oh, I didn't even see that little panel here, and like, those little details are, incredibly powerful storytelling tools that if you want same with like Easter eggs, like if they're done properly and not, like overtly, having Easter eggs and things like that are very good storytelling apparatuses for people that become real fans. Like you shouldn't be drawing so that every single person wants to read your comic. You should be drawing so that real fans become true fans of your work.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you guys, hardcore comic fans, as creators, don't make the mistake of trying to please everybody and sell a bunch of comic books. The thing is, do what entertains you, and the people that are like-minded and find that entertaining, they will jump on it, and that's where you get your fan base. I mean, granted, 100%. I know it's to make it's to make a living. I get that, but I mean, if you want to go kick out IPs for Marvel and DC where they control everything and give you a full script, go for it. But if you're creating comic books on your own and you have the option of going freelance or getting into this industry and trying to jump up on what you want to do and make a mark, don't try to make a mark of going in and screwing with something by trying to make a company machine IP sell. What you want to do is you want to jump on and say, okay, here's the deal. I want to go in and I want to make the best Batman I can of the stories that I want to share and show. And if you can get to that point, you're good to go. No matter who the character is, be it Batman, be it anybody else, right? I mean, you're doing your own comics as well. You know what the freedom is. Because most people go, well, you're doing your own comic? Well, why, if you're that good, why don't you work for Marvel and DC? Marvel and DC is a misnomer with the standard, okay?
They're the golden handcuffs, that's why.
Exactly. But, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go on the soapbox and go down the rabbit hole, but I'm going to say this. I have a very stern understanding of comics being one thing. Comics are all comics. We are in the industry, whether you see it as small press, mainstream, whatever, it's all comic books. Okay, it's all comics. Excuse my voice there. It's all comics, right?
Yeah.
We are on the same shelves right next to Marvel and DC. Even if they get halfway across the store with the people that want to put them on their own shelves, right? It's still, and don't get me wrong, I love Marvel and DC. I'm a huge fan. I always will be. But creatively, I want my comics on the shelves just as much as they do. And when you stop and you look at it, I'm going to create any comic that I touch just as good as if I would be working for Marvel and DC. I guarantee you're going to get a different attitude about it because you're going to create comics you want to read, not comics you want to buy and sell.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the better alternative. There's an article, I'm sure I've referenced it on past podcasts before, but an article by Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired magazine,
Right.
called "A Thousand True Fans," and it's
Right.
this idea that if you might be able to sell one comic a few hundred times, but like eventually, if people don't become fans of your work, they're going to stop buying it and they're going to buy the other thing where people care about their fans.
Right.
And the idea is that if you have 1,000 true fans, basically, like, let's say you have 1,000 true fans, you got their email address, they love everything that you do. A true fan will buy anything you ever make ever. They'll buy tickets to conferences that you're at. They'll attend what's it called, autograph sessions that you go to, right? So anything that you're involved in, they want to be involved in, which means that you can sell your comics. You could sell single single prints, right? You can sell a bunch of things like this. And you can merchandise, you know what I mean? Like, they will want to support you. So if you really do, like, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to create comic books just to sell them in mass. Like, we want to sell them in mass, but we want to actually create an awesome story that we want to read, because we know that if we truly want to read our own comics, there's got to be at least one other person out there that wants to read them. And we're hoping that we can get 1,000. And then 10,000. Like, that's the idea, is move up the chain, one reader at a time.
Well, think about this. Because I'm massively all about business. I mean, it's just one of my favorite studies. I'm all about business as well in comics. And part of the things that I'm doing right now, I've always been an advocate for small press and indie guys jumping on their own ideas and producing them. And everybody's like, well, I don't have a printer. I don't have an option. I don't have this. I don't have that. And it's like, okay, cool. You need to get off your butt and get your stuff out there in one form or another. I can't print. I can't afford it. So go digital. Well, I don't want to do digital because I don't have an ongoing book. I don't have continuity or regular issues. Okay, then do a webcomic. Downsize. Do a one-shot. Do a graphic novel. Do whatever format. Find out what your media vehicle is. Find out what your action vehicle is as far as producing. Find out what your schedule and productivity is, and then kick it out there. Okay? Because I'll tell you one simple thing. You have to get it out there for anybody to see it and know it. Period. Right?
100%.
Well, think about this one. Everybody goes, well, I want to go work for Marvel. Marvel's the dream. Marvel's the standard. DC is the standard. And I'm like, okay, cool. Think about this. What is Disney's true business? What comes to mind?
Entertainment, like in general, like, is that what you mean?
Monopoly.
Or
films?
There's no wrong answer. Just tell me what pops into your head the first time.
I would say films and theme parks.
Okay. Walt Disney, his true business was real estate and family tourism. Walt Disney and his brother Roy used Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Oswald, which is the predecessor to Mickey, which is a public domain rabbit that nobody knows about. He looks like a cross between Felix the Cat, Bugs Bunny, and Mickey Mouse. Seriously.
I feel like I've seen that before.
It's Oswald. You can look it up. Here's the thing. When Walt Disney did his business, he wanted to be
I've seen him. There he is.
He wanted to be a land investor for tourism, and because he wanted to build his kids the ultimate theme park. Well, he wanted to be an animator to make money, to give them that life and buy real estate, right? Well, he needed characters, so he made his animal cartoons and took public domain stories, i.e., fairy tales.
Yeah, the
and
Grimm's Grimm's
Yeah.
tales. I
Yeah,
forget the
all the classic European fairy tales. The fairy tales from Europe and from the fairy tales that he grew up with. That was the fantasy. Anything from the Brothers Grimm to Mother Goose to anything else in that list. The Three Musketeers and so on, right?
Mhm.
Well, he made cartoon versions of those as animals and made his movies and made shorts for the intro to film, and then used that money to move into movies. Now, think about this. Whenever you watch a Disney movie, it is not about watching that movie. It's about making an experience. You pay to see that movie, and you instantly become a paid employee paying the company in reverse to be an advertising advocate for Disney.
Yeah, because you want to tell people about this magical experience.
This is the chain reaction. You see the movie, you see the advertisement for the movie, right?
Hmm.
You see it, you pay your ticket. You pay them to watch their advertisement for their theme park, which is what that film is. It's a 2-hour ride commercial to check that out. Now, you're paying them to watch their commercial. What do you do when you come out of the movie? Everybody asks you how it is. So you instantly go, "Oh, I'm bonded. I'm in there. These characters are great. They're phenomenal." You give word of mouth advertising all across the board to everybody, correct?
Yeah.
So that's step 2. Then you get into it, and what do? First thing, because you're motivated, you have given out word of mouth advertising. You've paid to see this thing, so you're already invested in it, in money, in time, and in peer pressure of pop culture for passing it on.
Oh yeah.
So you're already fully invested. They got the trifecta. You put cash down on it, you put time down on it, and you told your friends, so you're viable for it.
Yeah, it's like consistency biasy. It's like where they make the first yes really easy. It's like, oh, it's only a few bucks for a film, and then yeah.
And now what are you going to do? Because you're so amped and you got everybody else going about it and you got all excited and you go tell everybody word of mouth. What happens? You tell everybody word of mouth, then they go see it, and then you got a cluster of a community that you belong to, not only through the experience of the characters with the film that you bond on, but you have the community that you're acting with in unison because you belong to something. Yay! You're part of the Mickey Mouse Club, modern day. Now, then on top of that, what do? You go triple down. You go spend more time watching more movies. You go spend more money buying more tickets for more movies and merchandise to collect it because you're all excited about it. So then you're a walking billboard. And you're running around. And then every time somebody asks about it, what happens to you? What happens to you? You become a babbling idiot for the Mickey Mouse Club occult. No offense to them because it's business. But it's true. You're brainwashed. That's what happens. That's what marketing is. That's what it is. Because every time someone asks you about your t-shirt, it doesn't matter. It's just business. I get it. But it doesn't matter if it's Marvel or DC or anybody else. Again, nothing personally against Marvel or DC. I'm not saying they're doing anything.
You know Seth Godin, the marketer?
Right.
Yeah, like he talked about this. It's not even just marketing either. Like people want to belong to a tribe. Like people want something to belong to. Like I was reading
absolutely. Tribe building. I mean, I'm a marketer. That's what I do. So yeah.
Yeah, I was like reading an article the other day that was specifically talking about the fact that, or no, it wasn't an article. It was the book I'm currently reading. It's called The Brand Gap, and it's all about this idea that people try to merge people together, but the harder you do that, the more tribal we become. Which obviously today's society is pretty evident of, and it's interesting that the reason for that is
I have no idea what you're talking about. Nope.
But because of that, it's very interesting. Like we want to feel like we're in a close-knit group, which means that you can't be in that big of a group. So that's why if you go watch a film, it's your close friends that all talk. But then each one of your close friends has their close friends. So it really is this tribe, like you're saying, kind of like a cult. But the whole idea is it feels like you're in these small little niche groups because of it.
I'm going to tell you something biologically. Okay? It's a biological proven fact. There's been studies on it in Yale. Okay? This cracks me up. You have 4 fingers and 2 thumbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that is well, you're supposed to. Let's put it that way.
I meant 8 fingers, 2 thumbs.
Well, four fingers on each hand.
Yeah.
So I'm a comic artist. I'm not a mathematician, but anyway, you get it. So I told you I'd say something stupid in the beginning. I told you, I warned you. But anyway, 4 fingers on each hand, 2 thumbs. You have 10 digits total, right? Well, the point is that 10 digits is exactly what you can have in the mass of your inner circle that you can function with in any social event.
Let's say that again.
That is the mass number that you can function with. 10 is the max number that it's been proven, the max number that you can function with at any given time in any social environment or event.
Because you can point to them all at the same time.
You can you can be around a dinner table of family and friends, and notice how whenever you have a family dinner, right? And it doesn't matter how long you make that picnic table, if you have room to make it, you're still only going to be talking to the closest 10 people near you that are in eyesight. And beyond that, you have to move down to talk to someone else, right?
Yeah.
You got to move around the room to mingle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've only got so many people that your brain can function talking to at any given time in one group without ignoring someone else's comments or interaction. It's a proven fact. Now, whenever you get into that environment and you get into, like you were talking about, Seth stuff, which he's a great guy, but you get into Seth stuff or into marketing principles and you get into scalability, you're looking for that 1,000 people, that 1,000 raving fans that you have. You can't talk to them unless you're on a stage. There's no way you can interact with them one-on-one in the same environment in an instant. It's not going to happen. However, you can present to them from a table and an overhead on a stage and talk to them all at once and interact with them as a group. It's possible, yes. It's feasible. It happens all the time. Speaking events and cons prove that. But to talk to them intelligently and about anything of substance beyond what you're speaking about, think about that, man. You can't do it. You can't do it. It's too big. So what he's talking about is breaking it down into 3 phases. You have your family, which is your intimate inner circle of that 10 people. Then you have your friends, which you can mingle with up to 10, 20 people in a room, but you have to change tables. Then you have that massive event where you bulk spend across the board. So you have to be a presenter at the bulk stage to get out there and present with this. When you throw out a comic book on a shelf to get your 1,000 raving fans, you're basically speaking to each one of them individually as a copy of your comic.
Yeah.
So you make your story resonate when you take your stage presence of the fan base that you're reaching to and reverse engineer it down to where you're talking to them on that comic page as you do it individually as one of your 10 people, that's how you connect. You make your comic book read for you and the other 9 people at the table, and it will resonate with hundreds of thousands of people.
See, that's like the power of social media as well. It's like if you do it correctly, like if you're not just posting something hoping to get as many likes as possible, and you're posting something for those specific people that would actually hear your message, that's how you actually get more people to like it, ironically. Like it's the idea of focusing on that one person and really talking to them. So when they read that, they're like, I'm Phil. Like, that's me they're talking to. Like, it's like that's really a powerful thing. Like, yeah, I agree 100%.
You can walk up. Here's the thing. If you walk up and about individual contact, people go, well, people say that my comics suck. That people say my artwork sucks. People say my writing sucks. People say this sucks. And I'm like, okay, cool. So change it. Get better as an artist. Change your comic. Write a different direction, or consider the fact that that's not a fan and do your way.
I was about to say, it's like,
why do you care?
You know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Oh yeah, I know Gary. Yes.
One thing that he talks about a lot is that you have to simultaneously care deeply about what they say and not care at all, because they might be giving you valuable feedback. Like maybe your artwork really does suck, or maybe that person doesn't like that type of artwork. Like the show Rick and Morty, for example, is a great example. Like that artwork is not the same quality as the old Justice League cartoon, which was like really crisp and clean. Theirs is very chaotic, right? Someone might just not like that. Then there's also the tonality of it, like the old, same thing, the old Justice League, very clean cut. There's not a lot of vulgarity in it. And then you go to this show and it's hyper vulgar, right? So it's certain people will like certain things, like to each their own, and you have to build for the. If you have a story you want to tell, there's a difference between being bad at storytelling and having a bad story, right? Like you could have a great story and you're just not good at storytelling. That's a skill you can acquire. Where if someone tells you your story sucks and it's written properly, like they might just not like that story. Like there's people who don't like Harry Potter and it is a worldwide sensation. So clearly, almost objectively, that person might actually be wrong, right? Like it's as opposed to the subjectivity of something like Rick and Morty, where like that, that's a very unique flavor.
Well, it's art is, and we're in the entertainment industry, okay? And you have to look at yourself basically like you remember the Gladiator film with Russell Crowe?
Are you not entertained?
Exactly. That's the statement right there, man. You have to walk up and you have to ask each individual person, are you not entertained? And if they say no, you go, thank you very much. On to the next fan.
Thank you, next.
Because that is their honest answer and opinion. And if it sucks, that doesn't mean that you should go blow your head off because of the fact that you're upset. They disagreed with you. It's their relative opinion. And art is absolutely relative, no matter whether you think it is or not. It is not going to click with anybody and everybody.
I think that's the thing that differentiates art from science is the fact that it is opinionated, like the fact that it is unique. Like no two people can look at a piece of art and get the exact same experience, where with like math and science, you can. Like that's the difference.
And see, there are people that go, well, your style's too cartoony. And I'm like, well, thanks. I appreciate it. I work hard at that. They're like, you need to draw more like David Finch and, and this guy and that guy, and you need to get more realistic. And I like comics that are darker and grittier and more photorealistic. And I'm like, well, then go read David. That's, that's your fan. That's your thing, man. That's your jam right there. Go get his books. I'll call him for you. Hey, man, you need to send this guy some books.
Yeah, he wants to give you his money.
I mean, I'm sure he'll be happy to pay the bills with it, But then on top of that, it's one of those things where everybody is, because of social media, everybody's a fan, right? But everybody's also a harsh critic and an instant professional expert for some reason. And that eats me alive, too. And we have a problem with the industry because, again, back to that, what I was saying earlier was about the Disney thing. Marvel and DC they are just another company. They just happen to be bigger and have more money to throw at it.
They've also been around for like 50 years.
Yeah, they've also been around one of the long, they're old. They're one of the older companies. They're not old. They're the oldest companies around that are still in existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it. You're looking at, it's like, well, they're the best and they're the oldest and they're the longest in this because they built their business. Give yourself 60 years and see how you do.
Yeah, I was just talking about that to somebody because I work with a lot of like artists and musicians, and so many times they're like, oh man, I've been doing this for 3 years and I'm not seeing anything. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like there's been people that did it for a decade before they saw like a single sale and then it exploded. Like it's actually, again, back to Seth Godin, he has a fantastic 72-page little tiny book called The Dip. And it's this concept of you as you get better, you climb the hill, and then there's this moment that everyone must go through if they want massive success, and it's called the dip. And it's this moment in time where you actually feel like you're almost backtracking. And the problem is that most people look at that backtrack and go, you know what, it's not worth it, and they quit. And the few people who do not quit, ironically, end up having no competition because they are so much better than everybody else because they went through that tough phase. And now it's actually easy. That's why you get a Walt Disney who it sucks his whole life. And then eventually when he breaks through, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got all this money. I can buy this. I can buy Marvel. Like you have the Disney company buying up every company or entertainment company known to man because they just outlasted people. It's consistency. It's persistence. It's
they're an IP machine now as a side note to that. But Guy Kawasaki used to call that, He used to call that the resurrection analysis, because
I like that.
it was called the resurrection analysis. And the reason he called it that was because of the fact that he said you either have moved and you're either the phoenix, you're going to be resurrected into a new form, or you're going to be resurrected back to your original reset based on that analysis, because you're going to either say exactly what you just said. You're either going to move forward in this new path and have an epiphany and go, wow, I'm finally good enough. Or you're going to move back and go, well, I suck at this. I got to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, which one are you going to do? I hear that from new creators all the time. And it's like, well, I've been doing this for 6 months. I'm fresh out of art school and blah, blah, blah. And I haven't gotten a job yet. And I'm like, wait till you've been doing it. Wait till you've been doing it since your teens like I have. I was self-taught to draw. I still draw every day to perfect things. I'm not the best artist in the room. I know that. I'm cool with it. I get it. But I have a style, and that's all that matters. And I have a unique voice to my stories. That's all that matters. And if I don't, then that matters too. But the old adage of putting in 20,000 hours, 10,000 hours or to get good, 10,000 hours to get great. And then,
I think it's the 10,000 hour rule to become an expert, and like an expert's like top 5, or top 10 or top 5% of a skill, depending on the difficulty of the skill. But yeah, that's the was it Malcolm Gladwell? That's
right, exactly. Malcolm Gladwell did that. Yeah. Well, here's the funny part. Think about this. Everybody's like, well, I'll never be like Jim Lee, and I want to be Jim Lee, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Jim Lee's not Jim Lee. Have you seen his new stuff? Jim Lee of the 90s that was popular is not the same guy. He's changed too. But I said, think about this one. And I was just telling a young artist this just yesterday, matter of fact. A young man by the name of Tim. You know who you are, bud. I won't rat you out with your last name, of course. But boy, I bet you he's going to hear this and he's going to be like, wait a minute. But yeah, we were discussing it just yesterday. And I told him, I said, man, you're 2 years out of college, dude. I said, what comics have you done yet? And he said, none. And I said, well, what do you show? And I'm going to switch to ink on this for a while. But I was like, well, here's the thing, man. When you get into this, what is your deal? I said, what have you done? What have you shown editors? And he's like, well, I want to be a comic pro. And I said, well, here it comes, the dreaded 16-year-old needing a car for a job and a job for a car, right? He looks at me with the straightest, most sincere face and says, I don't draw for free. I don't have a portfolio. I don't draw for free. What? What? What?
This
is the thing. You have to go off and create. You have to go off and create a work example, at least in a portfolio set, so that you can show that you can do the job. I'm sorry, but you don't walk in without a resume at McDonald's and go, okay, I'm the new guy. I can flip burgers, but I'm going to hire on as a manager. I flip burgers at home on my grill, and I got this down, but I want the manager job. Okay, let's look at that one and see how long that lasts. Then let's go into the comic scenario here. Same thing. You're wanting to do a comic, but yet you haven't ever drawn one. So what? And then all these guys want to run around and say, well, when we put money into it, I don't draw for free. I want to be paid. Well, nobody knows that you can draw because you haven't done a comic to prove that you're good enough to do comics for them.
That's something we see a lot in the indie community. We had what was his name? Austin. Who was the guy that mentioned this? It was on our virtual Austin, right? He's like an actor and does a couple other things, but he's basically he was talking about like how people are charging for way too much to draw for comics, and they're like, what the hell, did you work for Marvel or something? And it's like, no, but people have told me I'm really good. It's like, well, what's awesome? Like, I can get this great piece of art from you, but your name doesn't even carry weight, which means I still have to market and sell this, and I still have to pay you this amount. Like, that's insane. Like, you think you're that good, but like, I could just pay someone with clout a little bit more, and now I don't need you at all because the marketing I'm going to get from this other guy is going to be
Right,
worthwhile.
because the brand he brings behind it, exactly.
And it's like, if you never draw on your own, you're never going to even get that branding. So that means even if you keep charging this premium, eventually you won't have clients. What happens right now? We're in the middle of like a recession. People are paying double what they were for chicken 2 weeks ago, right? Why am I going to pay you to draw
Right.
comic books, right? Like, that's insane. So like, if your name carried weight and I could sell those comics after, absolutely. But it's definitely a huge deal when independent creators of any type, artists for comics, artists for music, and singers and songwriters, things like that. It's like you have to, like, I learned programming. Like, for some people that's super
So did
difficult.
Yeah,
like
I know multiple languages.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I ended up building probably a half dozen websites, maybe a dozen websites completely free. Right, I've done complete rebranding of companies for free. I've done social media marketing for free. Like, I did tons of stuff for free before I even asked for money, let alone a ton of money. And I still asked for minimal amount. I raised the rate slowly because now people can see more work that I've done. And
Well, see, that's exactly it, and that's exactly it. You have to slide the scale, but you have to get on the scale to get noticed. You have
Absolutely,
you have to get on, and I love saying that you have to get on the scale to weigh in. That's what it is, and it's true. It's funny, but it's true, and I see it all the time because it's like, well, how much do you charge? Well, I charge $350 a page. Really? Okay. Well, what comics have you worked for? What's your history look like? Well, I'm still looking to get my first comic. What?
Yeah, you're insane if you're.
I get now my rate. I work on a sliding scale depending on the project. I work on what the project allows. Okay? Plain and simple. I'm okay with that. I make money. I'm all right. I do that. I do that because I want to work on projects that I want to work on. But I do it philosophically too, though. I look at it and go, okay, this guy can afford this. This company can afford this. This person can afford this.
And there's tons of other features too. There's like how fast do they want it done, right? What's the difficulty in what they want drawn, right? Like that type of stuff. Like, if you're an expert at background design and that's something really important to them, well, guess what? Now you can charge more for that particular person because you know that your value to them is much greater than another artist who's really good at facial expressions, if that's not the thing they're looking for this particular comic.
Right.
Like,
well, you got to match up the project too. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. But I see it all the time where these guys go, well, I won't, I pay, like I said, $350 a page, but they don't have a comic to show or speak of. And it's like, really? How do I know what you can do?
Well, yeah, it's like, why don't you start at like less than half at it?
Well, he says, the guy that I'm mentioning here, he said, well, pay me $350. My rate, this example, not Tim, but another example, this artist particular came out and said, I charge $350 a page. I said, okay, cool. I said, well, show me some samples and we'll go from there. And he said, well, I charge $150 per page for samples.
That's ludicrous. Like, if you're a beginner comic book artist, I'll let you know right now, you're not going to get that for the finalized pay rate, like the sample one. Like, that's insane to think that you could charge that with zero proof of your work, with no weight behind your name, no connections, no guarantee that you're going to try to also help push my comic. Like, that's another big one. Like, there's plenty of people that they'll take that paycheck to create your comic, and then that's it. They don't even care about the project. They just wanted the money, and so they're not going to even push it after. So you paid all that money for somebody, and like you're saying, you're pumping out 3 pages a day. Now, don't get me wrong, that's also because of incredible time spent doing that. But if someone who's not even a veteran of the art, right, they haven't been doing it long enough, and they're charging something $350 a page, like, that's more than a lot of people make at anything, let alone at something that you can do from home. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go anywhere to do this. Like, that's
right.
Be blessed that you're able to make that income, like any income from that art.
Well, see, I make sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I work fast, and that's part of the reason I make the money I do. It's because I work fast, and I'm not going to go into what I make. That's client privilege to me.
Yeah,
And not to mention the fact that I don't want to brag. But because it's just it's an asinine thing to do. But then you have, I go in for speed. Okay, I go in for speed and detail, and that's what I'm known for. And as you saw with my Lone Rider book, I do every aspect of it so I can jump on and do whatever they need me to do.
Which is super rare too. Like that's the whole point. Like if you're an artist and you only learn pencils and you want to charge something crazy like $350 a page, you better be able to have a connection to the president or something to be able to get this thing
you
pushed.
better
Like
resurrect Leonardo da Vinci or some crap, because I mean, the quality better be
with the clout too, not just the artistry level, with the clout. You're gonna need.
You better have a fan base and a legacy, and like millions of followers, and because it's just stupid crazy. And people go, well, I did this webcomic on Webtoons, and it's like, okay, well, what did you do? Well, I did this panel. What? What? And this thing's got like 3,000 pages on it, and it's like he did a panel on like page 23 back in 2003, and I'm like,
oh my God, yeah. I had one incident where like somebody I was looking to bring on different creators for my marketing company, and somebody reached out to me being like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, do you have like a portfolio? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, well, like, yeah, like which version of Photoshop do you have? Because like, depending on because they went to school a while ago, and they're like, oh, I don't have it on my computer. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what am I supposed to buy the software for you so that you can do work for me? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You graduated like 5 years ago. You have no portfolio to show for it. Over the last 5 years, you didn't dabble in it. Like, you didn't do anything. Like, and I feel like that's kind of the case with a lot of people in comics. Is like you just said, like they did a panel this one time in 2003 because somebody needed a little extra work done and they couldn't find anyone else, and they accidentally found you. Like that's kind of.
And I do free work, and the funny thing is, everybody's like, I don't work for free. Like I was talking about that other guy. I'm like, really? Yeah, I do free work. I did free work yesterday. I'm doing free work when we're talking. I've got free work sitting on my table. I do free work for friends all the time. And why is that? Because while I'm doing something that I want to do paid wise, I'm still making an extra credit here and there with a project to help a friend out get their book out, or to get the project done because I want to do it and get a chance to work with a friend if I've got the time to do so. But I'm fast enough I can do that too, though. But anybody that says they won't work for free, I'm like, there is no working for free. Okay, there is no working for free, and that's total crap. Anybody that says they won't work for free they're lying to themselves,
or they're just not going to make it. There's a author of a book called The 10X Rule. His name is Grant Cardone. I don't know if you've heard his name.
Yeah, I've known Grant for years. Yep.
So so one of the big things he talks about is how I think it was in that book, The 10X Rule, how he did a calculation, I think at the age of 40 after he became a multimillionaire, and he added up all of his hours to figure out how much he worked and how much he currently has acquired and how much he's earned over those years. Yeah. And he figured out that he had an hourly rate of $5 an hour. Like people don't realize like that whole thing with like the dip with Seth Godin, like in the beginning, you might do like hundreds of things for free just to get your name out there. Right. So that later you can charge $1,000 a page because people absolutely need your artwork, right? Like that, if you really want to be this, like a Jim Lee, if you want to be someone who's got so much clout that everyone in the industry knows their name, you need to be everywhere. And if you're not constantly creating work and getting better along the way, no one will ever hear your name. So if you don't do free work, no one will ever find you because you're only going to have a certain amount of paid work that's ever going to come your way, especially if you're not pushing your name.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's exactly it. Everybody makes this mistake and says free work. Okay. Everything I do is going to make me money. Everything I lay on. Right. Everything I do makes me money. It doesn't matter. Like we're doing this podcast hanging out. Neither one of us are paying either side for this thing. It's for great content, right? That's
absolutely
it. At least at least for people to laugh at me. So, but that's the point. We do this stuff because of the fact that we're making money with it, because it's exposure, it's credibility. So you're investing in that. It's an investment that we need, and people just don't get it, man. I mean, hardcore, we just don't get it. I say flat out, if you're not producing, you're only as good as an artist at the day that you're an artist. And I say that loosely because of the simple fact that if I didn't draw something today, which I've been up since 3:30 a.m. this morning, working on pages today. And I'll do this. And here's the rule of thumb with this. All right. If you don't draw today, if you say you're an artist and you draw stuff, and I'm like, well, cool. What have you done today? Well, I haven't drawn today. I've been doing this. I'm at this party, or I'm doing this. I'm at this luncheon, or I'm at this convention. And I'm like, okay, so you were an artist yesterday. Because you're only an artist, and you can call yourself presently an artist at the time that you're drawing stuff. If you've drawn in the last 24 hours, then you're an artist today. Yes, you're an active artist today. But if you haven't drawn anything for 2 weeks, or haven't created a portfolio, or haven't drawn anything for free because you're drawing to draw, then you're not an artist.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I was actually just like doing some quick math to think. I was just curious, like, even if you had an 8-hour a day drawing, like if you got paid for 8 hours a day and you drew for 8 hours a day every day, no breaks, no Sundays off, no weekends off, it would still take 3.5 years to get to your 10,000 hours. Like I was just curious about that. Like, if you drew every day 8 hours a day, right? That would be 1,250 days until you hit your 10,000 hour mark, which would be 3.5 years. And
Right.
People are like 2 years, like, oh, I took this online drawing course this one time, or like I went to school for it. Like, you didn't even do 8 hours a day when in school for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, of drawing, nothing but drawing.
You did projects. Yeah, you did projects in the class. That's sweet. That's cute. But what have you produced?
Yeah, like even if you drew 5 hours a week, right? Like 5 times was that 52? That's only 260 hours in a year. That's not. It's not even 1,000 yet. Right. Like you're nowhere close, and that's much closer to what someone's probably doing. Is like 5 hours a week in art school of actual drawing.
Right. You think about this. People go to law school and medical school for 8 to 15 years just to get a degree.
And then they still have to do the what's it called, the underling
certification stuff. And internship and certification.
Yeah, it's like 10 years before they get to that moment where they can actually cash that big paycheck. That's why young doctors are still in debt.
Yeah, can you imagine some knucklehead going into a surgery, and I'm talking a live surgical theater, and doing like heart surgery on you? Can you imagine being the guy, getting that guy to fix your whatever? And he's got, don't worry about it. I got a 2-year certificate.
I took a 9-week boot camp.
You have to earn the props, and this is the way that I do it. And like I said, everybody has to find their own groove is the point of this right here. But think about this. Earn your right. Cut your chops. Earn your right. Earn your right. You want to say you're a comic artist? Produce comic art. I'm just checking to make sure I didn't bleed through on my table.
Yeah.
I did that with a Sharpie. I was like, I don't have an undersheet. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, I do it. Find your own path, of course. But I do it like this. I work every single day. I'm grabbing a brush pen, sorry. I work every single day, and I don't live by free time. When I schedule things on my calendar, the typical person goes through and goes, okay, we got the work calendar, so we have to put this project, right? For next Tuesday at 10 p.m., there's a deadline, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the way they put their calendar. I don't do that. And then they schedule their time off, and that's when they schedule their vacation, and that's when they schedule doctor's appointments or kids' appointments or this, that, and the other, right? I don't do that. I switch gears and go the exact opposite. I have no such thing as free time. None. I schedule date night with my wife. I schedule all of my children's events. I schedule all of my family events, all of my doctor visits, all of my appointments, all of my stuff, all of my meetings. And then everything that I have a free moment for, I'm hammering at this table. Everything. I carry pages with me religiously. So decide what your point is and how many times you want to say, well, I'm not gonna be able to do that project because I don't have time. Okay, cool. You don't have time. Well, what do you have time to do? Well, I checked out what did you do yesterday? I checked out this new video game.
Netflix had a new series.
But you're griping, you know? I mean, I sat down to do this stuff every single day that I moved. And that's what I do. I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. My first professional hit was for an indie company that's no longer in existence. And yeah, so I won't mention it, but mainly because I don't want people to look at the work. But sadly enough, but I was 13 when I got my first hit. And you know how, and people are like, well, you're a child prodigy. And I'm like, no, I'm a lucky doofus. You don't realize how lucky I was. But I said I told my mom, I said I wanted to be a comic artist when I was 5. She said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'll never forget it. I was 5. It was my 5th birthday. And I said, my birthday wish is that I want to be a comic artist. And I knew then I had the bug since I was like 3. And that's it, man. If you really want to do it, you got to put in the hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that's something really important for people to realize. Like, you know, for example, I went to school for engineering, right? Like, that's not even close to what I do now. Like, now I'm involved in marketing and comic books and music. Like, it's a completely different realm. And like, I will say that the luckiest thing you had was somehow knowing what you wanted so young. And then you still put the 10,000 hours in, right? Like, so anyone who decided, like, you know, they're 22 and they're like, I'm going to be a comic book artist now, right? Or even 18 before they go to college, like, I'm going to go to college for art and then I'll be a comic book artist. Like, you have to realize that other people started when they were 5, 10, 15 years old. They've just got a head start, right? All the stuff that you got to do, right? Like, you know, somebody else, maybe they went on vacation instead of doing that. Like, that's a big Gary Vee thing. Like, he's like, I didn't take a vacation from ages 20 to 30. Right? Did you travel recently? Look at that. You already missed out on a chance to get better at a skill. Don't even regret it. Enjoy the fact that you had a chance to enjoy something.
Right.
And now you just have to realize, well, now you got catch-up time for all of these skills that you want to learn. Right? Like, I wish I learned multiple languages as a kid. There's kids that can speak 3 languages and they're 8 years old. And you're like, what the heck? Well, cool. Like, you can either be sad and whine about it or go learn a new language.
Right, exactly. And, you know, you see that all the time. It's like, well, you were lucky. Well, you were fortunate. You were blessed. Well, you're smarter than I am. You faster than I am. No, my circumstances are different from yours, yes. But that does not mean that you can't be where you're at and do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Jim Lee, he was a child prodigy from South Korea. His parents saw what he wanted to do. But I'll tell you this, he had a tutor that would teach him how to draw, because that's what he wanted to do. As part of his culture, he learned art. And it's all cool, right? But did you see his first Punisher work? Did you see his first Wolverine work? Did you see his first X-Men work? It was gritty as all get out. It was super gritty stuff. I mean, it was rough. Look at his first Punisher posters and pinups and covers. You put that in comparison to his 1991 stuff when he hit it, then light it up, because it's night and day. It's almost sad, because it was a graffiti scribbly style in comparison to what we know from the slick, polished Jim Lee, correct anatomy, golden boy, can draw anything stuff. And that comes with experience, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, it is what it is, man.
Yeah, and like, the thing I always like to think about is that Gary Vee reference of not having, like, his 20 to 30-year-old, he didn't do anything. He didn't travel. He didn't have fun. Like, yes, Jim Lee might have had a tutor, but there's something else he didn't get during that same time frame that you did get, whoever you are. That's thinking that, that he's, lucky. It's like there's other stuff he had to give up to do that. right?
Right,
Like, you know,
right.
you got maybe you were a triathlete in high school. You got to enjoy a bunch of sports and have a lot of friends. And maybe Jim Lee just drew. Maybe he didn't have a bunch of friends as a kid,
Well,
right? I don't know.
his parents were on his back to be a doctor.
Yeah, like
You know,
maybe he just had a crappy childhood from having parents that he didn't feel like he received love from, you know. And yeah, sure, he's famous as an artist, and maybe he's sad inside, right? Like that's the big thing. Like
well,
you
he
don't.
took a year and said he was going to do it every day, and he took that summer. What happened was is he was studying and doing his basic college courses. According to what he says, he was doing his basic college courses, and then he went off. And I mean, he's been interviewed. You can look it up online. He's been interviewed numerous times about it. And he said, "Well, I decided to take a year and give this a full shot." And he said, "I sent him pages, sample work, and built it up. And then I got to show my stuff, and then I got a job, and that's where it went." I mean, you have to look at where you are today, right now, in this moment, and make the effort and say, okay, I'm going to clock my 10,000 hours. And what you do is you start building up. If you're a writer, are you right? You're just as good as the artist comment that we made earlier. Are you a writer? Yes, cool. Well, what did you write today? Show me something. Well, I didn't put anything in today. Well, then you are a writer when? And I always put it past tense. And I know that ticks people off because it eats them alive when I do that. It's like, well, I'm a writer now. No. And I'm like, really? How many hours have you put in? What books have you published? What have you written? Where's your stuff? Where are you at? What is it going on? Blah, 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 blah. And it eats them alive.
Yeah, and honestly, that 10,000 hour thing, like people really should like. I'm just playing around with my calculator now. Like, if you wanted to get that good in 5 years, right? Which some people are like, that's still way too much time. You would still need to draw 5.5 hours every single day for 5 years. Like, there's people that'll go 3 days without drawing. You've now got to add 15 hours to one of your days, and eventually, if you do that for a month, you cannot possibly do it in 5 years. You've already maxed out your limit if you want to sleep, right? Like, it's one of those things, like you have to be hyper consistent about it. You have, like Greg writes all the time, right? Like that's something like, you know, he's bored at work and he'll start writing, and you know, like, so like it's, you have to be constantly doing it, knowing that, and this was something that I heard probably like 6-7 podcasts ago. We were talking about the fact that, like, if you're an independent comic creator, people might not even take you seriously until your fifth comic is released, mostly because they need to see that, you know, they're not going to read issues 1, 2, and 3 and then lose your story because you gave up. Like, why would I invest all that time reading these 3 comics and then you disappear forever?
Which is why I was livid when I did. That was why I was so livid when I started doing comics, because when I published Lone Rider and Catman Evolution and these other titles that I had going on, everybody said, yay, we're all in. They all took money. They all took service. They all took all the hype. And then they flaked out on me. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me.